Welcome back, Air Crews, for another episode of the American Red Cross's Masters of the Air Legal Debrief. As always, I'm Thomas Harper. I serve as Senior Counsel in International Humanitarian Law for Red Cross National Headquarters in Washington, D.C. And during this week's episode, we're going to discuss Part 3 of Masters of the Air. Now, this episode centers on a mission gone sort of terribly wrong as the 100th Bomb Group is on a mission over Europe, and they're still several hours out from their target when they are engaged by just a massive number of Luftwaffe fighters. They take heavy fire, multiple forts are destroyed, and in fact, we see Roy Claytor's plane take extensive damage. He gives the order to his crew to bail. And they do just that. They secure, dump the bomb load. They secure or scuttle the bomb site. And they jump out to parachute out of the belly of the B-17. Just moments later, Buck Cleven, which witnesses, takes in the scene of absolute chaos as the 100th Bomb Group is ripped to pieces during this mission. Air crew are parachuting all over. It is just a complete chaotic, desperate scene. So that sets us up with a great legal issue here, and that's the business of parachuting air crews. Are they legal targets under the law of war? So to start, to frame this conversation, we're going to go to the Hague Conventions. We're not talking about the original Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907. Those were adopted when air flight either didn't exist or manned flight didn't exist, or it was brand new. But several years later, in 1923, there was an additional Hague Convention known as the Rules of Aerial Warfare. This would have been in play during the 1940s, during this mission. And within the Rules of Aerial Warfare seems as a fairly on-point rule here. When an aircraft is disabled, the occupants that are escaping, parachuting out, must not be attacked. Seems fairly straightforward, right? Well, let's draw a legal distinction here, because in this episode and in successive episodes, we see that the Luftwaffe does not abide by this rule. It's a controversy among the air crews. They seem incensed that air crews are being targeted as they parachute. Well, that's anchored in that rule, that very plain rule. But what's the distinction here? So let's compare Major Cleven of the 100th Bomb Group to another famous soldier in another famous World War II series, Band of Brothers, and the legendary Dick Winters of Easy Company, a famed paratrooper and a good foil in analysis here. So when we talk about air crews like Major Cleven's, they seem to be the centerpiece of this definition. So we're talking about occupants just like Major Cleven and the crews of these B-17s, Roy Claytor, Babyface, etc. They are occupants of an aircraft, and under the circumstances, like we see in episode 3, they're escaping their planes, not because they are on some sort of attack mission. They're not trying to get to the ground, but they're bailing out because their plane is damaged beyond all repair. It is impossible to make it back to their base, and rather than sacrifice the entire crew in sort of a futile effort, the air crews are equipped with parachutes, and they can jump out with and hopefully survive the loss of the aircraft. But you see, this is a very sort of specific set of circumstances. These air crews are sort of not equipped. They are acting out of desperation. It is a sort of a last-ditch effort to survive the destruction of their vehicle. And they're really in a precarious situation here as they jump out of their plane. They're largely defenseless. They certainly can't defend themselves against enemy aircraft. And even when they hit the ground, they're not sitting there equipped to wage war. Their goal is to escape, get back to friendly lines. Now, that's very different when you compare it to Dick Winters, Easy Company, and the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne. Their mission is very different than an aircrew. They're not trying to stay in the aircraft. In fact, their whole point is to execute a combat mission to jump out of the aircraft behind enemy lines and conduct an attack. And we see this in spades across Band of Brothers, from D-Day to Operation Market Garden, etc. The purpose of those soldiers jumping out of planes is very, very different. They are not under duress. I mean, they might be, the aircraft might be under fire, like under during D-Day. But those are infantrymen. Those are soldiers with an offensive combat function who are there to jump out of the aircraft. Understand they're still not equipped to fight, say, anti-aircraft batteries or Luftwaffe aircraft, but they are treated very differently under the law. And so the distinction here is pretty clear in their combat function, right? So under the Hague Convention, under modern rules, because this rule survives to this day, air crews who are bailing out, who are in distress and parachuting are protected. You cannot intentionally target them. Now, that doesn't save them from collateral damage. So if you're peppering the sky with anti-aircraft fire to try to hit aircraft and you happen to kill parachuting crew members, that's not an intentional targeting, but that protection exists. Not so for paratroopers like Dick Winters and Easy Company. They are not protected by the law. You can engage them, you can shoot at them, even when they're still falling to the ground with their parachutes. Thanks for joining our part 3. We'll be back next week for part 4, analyzing part 4 of Masters of the Air. If you want to check out more about our program, our upcoming national webinars, you can use this QR code. You can go to redcross.org/IHL. I'm Thomas Harper. I've been your crew chief for this mission, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks.